Because we ourselves are responsible. Let's tackle this corruption. Let's talk about it. But that means we too must not be corrupt. Because unfortunately, it's something that's not just going from one end to the other. I dare use those words. Everybody is an opportunist in this field. So everybody is to blame. It can't be the status quo. So you have to be able to say no. Teach young people to have the power. No. That's educating them. Tell them to say no. And then also tell them, don't just complain, get active. So you're accountable. Because if you're accountable, you also are to blame. So you do something. So when they ask you, you say, well, actually I did this. But if you don't feel accountable, and the problem is, in the majority of the times, nobody feels accountable. Because everybody feels it's somebody else's problem. But at the end of the day, it's all of our problems. Every single one of us. And lastly, in this context, mentorship and giving back. We have wonderful institutions in this country that have big, big people's names. And if you go to those institutions now, you'll be embarrassed. And some of the people, and I'm just throwing it into the room and I wish there were more Kenyans here, are still alive and those institutions are crumbling. And when we started building the nation, you know, the Harambee spirit, Uhuru, if anybody remembers that, I say I'm 29 forever, but I remember it from somewhere. That was a time when people would help each other, people would mentor. You'd have people filling, you know, the Uhuru Park and stadiums and whatever, just to build the nation. And now nobody cares. These institutions are falling apart, and they're holding big people's names. We don't have that kind of history. We've got to carry that history for the young people. That's another form of it. And that's cultural security. We need to give them that. We can't ignore it, we can't neglect it, and we're doing that. So when you're talking about security, and you mentioned in the speech, I'm sorry I'm too little long, business security and security in business. I talk about business security meaning economic security, economic growth. Security in business means crime, reduction of crime. If our young people are frustrated and we promise them something, we don't keep our promise, don't be surprised if there's conflict, don't be surprised if there's crime, because they feel cheated. They've done everything right, they've worked hard, in the end they have nothing. They have to be that askari, who we don't disrespect, but who's an askari because he has no choice. Young people need options, and we need to give them those options. That's the only way we're going to make a difference for them in security, for their own lives, for their own existence, and also security for the country's economic growth. It's not going to happen otherwise. We're cheating ourselves, and that's what is a requirement in the work that we're doing. In order what we're trying to achieve, we have to be honest, because that's the truth. In order to make that difference, we need to be honest about our position. And then the very last thing I want to say is that the context in which we talk about economic growth is also problematic from the point of view of the young people, because economic growth in emerging nations, all of that is measured by a Western standard of measurement. That is the reality of it. Because when you talk about economic growth, you look at emerging nations, you can look at the kind of slums they have. You look at the number of their people who are struggling and are suffering and are living below the poverty line. The emerging nation is being recognized as that from Wall Street, from an end where the normal person on the street has no idea what's going on. So we need to try and maybe change that a bit. Let's slow down. Let's try and fix home, fix our backyard before we go and get acclaim and all that for being an emerging nation. And then it's when we're going to have security. Because so long as you've got young people on the street who have no jobs, no education, are frustrated, and see the wealth and the squander that is going on with that wealth in our countries, we're not going to get security. And we're working on that with young people, and we're trying to tell them, and one of the things we're saying is, try and gain back, with your elders, with your families, some of our traditional values. Because we have values that made us include young people, that made us considerate of each other, that made us be proud to help, to nurture, to mentor, to contribute. And we're doing less and less of that. And again, like I said, I've made it very big personal. I'm talking more in the Kenyan context, but I'm hoping that in other countries, in African countries, because we're tending to generalize our countries into one continent, we have to stop if we want to make a difference. Thank you.